So before we get started on this conversation, I do want to take a moment to let you all know about a business that I've been learning more about, and that is Eco Nappy, www.econappy.com. So I've been chatting to the founder, who's Zara, and I just feel like this nappy is not only changing the world, it is sustainable, it is bamboo plant-based, so it is making a real difference to our environment. But also, mums are saying that it is the most absorbent nappy, it is comfortable, their children are sleeping through the night, and I feel like that is everything that I wish that I had in a nappy when my children were still in nappies. So I wanted to plug them in. They're a brilliant business. I really want to support the founder. Give them a try. Our leaders have the opportunity now. They are all busy testing them out. So you will start seeing their reviews and seeing what they have to say. But I have been online. I've seen all the reviews, what the mums and the general have to say. And everybody's saying wonderful things. So give them a try. Let us know what you think. And yeah, excited to hear the results. Now let's chat to Tasha. So we are really excited to get going on life as a new mum. Tasha, we're going to start the conversation with your experience of life as a mum. Please guide us through how it was for you. And then I'm really curious to know kind of how your experience of a mum has really shaped your offering and how you support and hold mums now within your clinic.
Thanks, Christy. Yeah, such a fun and exciting question to answer. So I have got three children. So I've got twin girls who are 11 years old now and a son who is 9 years old. And I was very blessed with my twin pregnancy and with my twins in the fact that I had a really relatively smooth journey. I had an amazing supportive husband and my parents were around and the girls were relatively easy, and I look back on it and think, gosh, that was actually quite an amazing experience. And then when I was pregnant with my son, I was so excited to have one baby. I was like, this is going to be a breeze. I can feed wherever I want. I can take him wherever I want. And I was like, and during my practice, I was looking at parents thinking like, you've got one baby, like surely this can't be this hard. And I was all quite sort of smug and annoying. And then when I had my son, I got a serious wake up call. This boy completely turned my life upside down. And I was hugely humbled by the experience because he was so fussy. I had huge problems breastfeeding. He didn't sleep at all. I mean, he didn't sleep pretty much for the first 5 years of his life. And it was hard work. And looking back, I think, how on earth did I have this baby? I have had twins. I'm a lactation consultant. I'm a clinic sister. I've been working with babies for so many years. How could I have this fussy baby? And just looking back, it was quite a challenging experience. And I kind of always use that experience with my parent, who I see to actually, because so many parents, I think, blame themselves. They're like, what am I doing wrong? My baby's so fussy. Why aren't I feeding? Why can't my baby feed? What am I doing wrong? And I think so many people blame themselves because they feel like they're not doing a good enough job. And I always use my experience and my story of the fact, like, look at me. I had all the experience in the world. I was professionally equipped. I was personally equipped. I'd done this before, and I got dealt a really, really fussy baby. And I learned along the way. And it just depends on the baby you're going to get, and I think so many people, when they do have relaxed babies, so many people say like, oh, well, it's the parents are relaxed and they, that's why the baby's relaxed. But if you have a fussy baby, you're not going to be a relaxed parent at all. It's really, really stressful. So yeah, that when they were little, it was challenging. And yeah, it definitely taught me a lot and humbled me a lot in my practice. And something interesting as well, kind of as the years have gone by, a lot of people say to me when they ask me how old my kids are, and I'm like, well, they're 11 now and they're 9, and they go, oh gosh. Or I said, oh, I have twins, and they go, gosh, that must have been hard. Like, well, I still have twins. I still have 3 children. And I think this expectation of, yeah, babies and children get easier, but it's never easy. I had a twin mom come and see me the other day, and she's like, tell me when it gets easy. And I'm like, I wish I could say it gets easy, but it doesn't get easy. Like the older your kids get, their needs change, your needs change, and you grow and you develop and you learn as you go along. Like I'm in a stage now where my kids are nearly tweens, and I'm learning how to parent tweens. Like I've never had tweens before, and just how parents are learning how to parent a 4-month-old or 5-month-old or 1-month-old. Like you just learn to adapt as the time goes by. So Nobody's got the answers to everything. You are just, yeah, constantly evolving and constantly learning and growing as a parent, and yeah, not getting it right all the time
I
at all.
I think there must be something about third children. I had such a similar experience to you in that my first two
Yes.
children were easy. And it does give you this, I want to say the word arrogance, but it's not arrogant.
Mm.
I almost thought like I had this like natural knack of being a mum.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
I just have it, you know, like I just have this
I can
patience
just
and
do this.
just do it. And my first two were so easy. And then little Blakey came
Mm.
around and whoa, he just blew us all off our feet. And it's, yeah, it is. It's a completely different experience. And in that, you know, and something that, I mean, I think that to an extent you feel with all of your children, but particularly when you have that difficult baby, the overwhelm that comes with that, the emotional, physical, mental overwhelm that comes with being a new mum. And I'd love to actually unpack that a little bit with you in if you have any advice and what you kind of see, because what I have experienced, what I see is that overwhelm starts, and then there are all these side effects that happen when
Mm.
overwhelm comes, whether that's like in your marriage or in your friendships or in your health or just parenting in general. So I'd love to know from you kind of what you see happening when mums do come to the clinic very overwhelmed, and if you have any advice for how do we become those new mums that we want to be, whether that is like a little bit calmer or more present or just better able to handle that overwhelm.
Yeah, I think a lot of my day is actually spent normalizing baby behavior, really. You know,
Mm,
I think so many people have got such a an unrealistic of what being a parent is. And this feeling of like, you know, you have to get everything right. My baby should be sleeping through from 3 months old. I should be back at work at 4 months. I need to be going out with my friends and having coffee the whole time. You know, while I'm on maternity leave. And the thing is, maternity leave is not leave. It's a job. You're leaving your job for another job. I mean, it's the most incredibly rewarding job, but you're leaving your work if you are working to be at home with your baby, which is a lot of work. And the thing is, I think, yeah, a lot of people don't realize that when they have a baby, in that you can't achieve a huge amount when you are with a baby, especially for the first 3 weeks, sorry, for the first 3 months. And I think what I find I tell a lot of parents to do is actually to get off social media. I think social media is a big part of the problem of this overwhelm. And the fact that moms are looking at like mommy bloggers and all these momfluencers and looking at all these amazing like moms who are, you know, at 6 weeks sitting on beaches with their babies breastfeeding and their bodies look amazing and they're out for lunch and they're going away and, you know, pictures of them. So it's this constant stream of you being fed this kind of images and information about what motherhood should be like, and it's completely false. It's just not the way it is. You know, you think in so many cultures you nest for 30 days, you nest for 40 days, people are looking after you, people are coming to you, you're helping, you know, families are helping you. And I think people think when they have a baby they're going to be the same person plus a baby, but actually you are a completely different person. Your brain has changed, your body has changed, every single part of you has changed, but you're expected to be that same person. So I think that's where a lot of the overwhelm comes from, and a lot of anxiety comes from, is that they just feel like they've got to carry on as usual. But I mean, it's impossible to do that. You'll never be the same after you have your baby. Your relationships are this different, you know, your family, yeah, your family relationships, your work relationships. So it's just being. I think a lot of parents don't. They need to kind of be kind to themselves and gentle to themselves, and just give them grace for the first few months. You know, there's this term which I'm sure you're aware of, matrescence, whereas this kind of evolving of a mother and becoming a mother, and that doesn't happen overnight. You know, adolescence, we talk about adolescence. You know, I'm saying my kids are tweening now. They already starting the process of adolescence, and that is years and years and years that they are developing. And the same thing happens with a mother, this matrescence, this evolving of becoming a mother. And I mean, I still feel sometimes I'm going through matrescence. I'm still learning how to become a mom. And it's this, yeah, this overwhelm of like, I've got to get everything right because so and so is doing it right, and the constant comparison and, you know, comparing yourself to other moms and other babies and other families. And it's just, it's so unrealistic, really. I think people just need to hone into their kind of intuition of yeah, just kind of like nesting and just being kind to themselves and slowing down, because we live in a very, 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 very busy life. Very busy world. There's just so much going on, and it's completely exhausting, and it's unrealistic way to live, really.
Oh, Tasha, I absolutely love that you've said that. Firstly, that you said that maternity leave is not just taking a break from life. It is another job. And I feel
Mm,
like, we have these boss mom groups, and so many of us talk about this idea that we are in hospital, still working on our laptops, just
yeah,
after having a
yeah,
baby.
exactly.
And the pace at which we are trying to do things, and then the guilt that comes from kind of dropping a couple of balls here and there, it is unbelievable what we're
Mm,
expecting of ourselves. So I've loved that you said that. And the social media for me has been such a huge topic, because I agree with you. I think that it does give us
mm,
such, firstly, the unrealistic expectations, but also what it's doing to our brains, just in terms of like that dopamine rush, and not being
mm,
present with our children, and not being able to use those natural instincts, because we're constantly looking at a phone. So
yeah.
I've loved that you've mentioned those two things.
Yeah, I think also, well, fairly recently as well, now instead of Googling, everybody chat GPTs everything.
Mhm.
So I mean, it's incredible. So also I think people are losing that ability to trust their instinct and
Yeah.
trust their intuition, because if something's not right with my baby, I'm just going to ask ChatGPT, and ChatGPT will have the answers. Whereas, and then now those answers on ChatGPT are overriding what you would have thought. Actually, it's okay, kind of, yeah. So it's almost like dumbing down your intuition, because moms and dads want instant answers, instant solutions, and sometimes there aren't any answers, and sometimes there aren't solutions to what's going on with their baby. So they actually stop using their intuition, and which is again leading to the anxiety, leading to the overwhelm, because it's like this instant, I need to find out what's wrong, but we can't always figure out what's wrong with our babies.
Exactly. Or sometimes we just have to tune into them and their needs to
Mm,
figure it out slowly without a Google or Chat GPT answer.
yeah,
And you used the words that I'd
yeah.
actually love for you to chat a little bit about, and just unwrap this, the word of matescence.
The Trescents, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So I mean, essentially, it's the evolving of a mother, really. And like, I've got such a wonderful clinical psychologist who comes to chat in my antenatal classes, and she talks about the like the you think about the huge change that happens between a caterpillar and a butterfly, and during the middle phase, as the kind of caterpillars in the little pupa kind of developing into a butterfly, they are like this sort of mushy, kind of vulnerable kind of state, and then they arrive into this beautiful butterfly. And we kind of need to treat moms as that little pupa at the beginning, where they're just finding their way, they're vulnerable, they're needing protection, they're needing help, um, they're needing kind of time to sort of just develop and kind of, yeah, be vulnerable and to be looked after, and then they develop into this mother of this beautiful butterfly. So it doesn't happen overnight. You think babies change so quickly. I mean, the first few weeks, it's all about feeding, and then before you know it, you are um, feeding food, and then they're sitting, and then they're crawling, and then a year, then they're suddenly walking, and you think, my word, what has happened in such a short space of time? What has happened to me? Like, my baby has evolved so much over such a short space of time, and now my baby's a year old, and I'm supposed to be an expert at this. It's just, yeah, it's just this unrealistic expectation that you have to be perfect at every single phase of your matrescence and of your development. And as I said, like, I don't see, we talk about matrescence as kind of those early phases, but actually you never stop evolving as a mother. You're always learning, you're always adapting to your child's needs, you're always yeah, kind of learning and growing, really. So matrescence is kind of like your whole journeyhood of mother, I find. But it's an incredibly vulnerable state and stage, and I don't think we have enough support for moms during that stage.
I think it also speaks to, as you're talking there, I was thinking about this concept of how hard it is. And when you do think about that little butterfly developing and pushing and its wings, like it is a struggle to get to that next stage. And
Mm,
sometimes we do expect it just to be easy. And if it's not easy, we think that something is wrong. But so very often it's that struggle that is growing us and making us the mums that we are meant to be then for the tween years, you know. And
Mm,
at the beginning how it doesn't change, and the bigger kids, the problems don't go away. Something that I've kind of find, and my children are younger than yours, is like bigger children, bigger problems, and like
yeah,
that emotional,
exactly.
the now my kids are at the stage that they come home that their friends don't want to play with them. Like for me,
Oh, yeah, it's so
those feel
hard.
bigger than the tantrums. And then I'm like, oh, I
Yeah,
get tantrums. Like,
yeah, exactly. I'll deal with a toddler tantrum any day over like, yeah, bullying or being left out, or and I mean then like we've got to deal with all the heartbreak of boys and
yes,
girlfriends and all of that. I mean that's all a whole nother chapter, which oh gosh, I'm not looking forward to that.
growing.
Um yeah. Yeah,
We're
yeah,
growing.
exactly. No, exactly.
And Tasha, on the topic of something that should be beautiful and natural, I want to talk about breastfeeding. So
Mm,
often, so we obviously have, and I know you also do breastfeeding at the clinic. We have a lot of mums, and I think the idea of breastfeeding is sometimes that's the natural route, that's this beautiful journey of breastfeeding, and very, very often that's not what it looks like for a lot of mums. And with that comes a whole lot of guilt, a whole lot of what is wrong with me. So I'd love for you to unpack kind of the journey of what you've seen with mums in the clinic, your experience with that breastfeeding journey, and if you have any advice on mums that do struggle, that their babies don't latch instantly, and it is,
mm.
and they do kind of take that on as something that they've done wrong.
Yeah, I mean, breastfeeding is such an emotional roller coaster of ups and downs, and it is such a long journey that some moms go on. There's this huge expectation from, yeah, from society, from parents, from grandparents, from friends, from, yeah, colleagues to kind of to breastfeed. And I think so many babies, I would probably say the vast majority of moms that I do see in the clinic probably do struggle with breastfeeding. You know, it's a, you know, my colleague always says it's a team sport that nobody knows how to play. You know, you and your baby are feeding, but you've both never done it before. And also some babies just arrive and they know exactly what to do, and some babies arrive and there's struggles and potentially, you know, they're born early, so they can't suck properly, or potentially they've got a tongue tie, which makes feeding difficult, or there's something else going on. And you don't know as a mother what is going on until you actually get help. So for me, like my absolute one big piece of advice to start off your breastfeeding journey is you have to connect with a lactation consultant, and you've got to get help early. You know, a lot of moms, you know, come out of the hospital and I see them say it's like 4 weeks and their nipples are bleeding and cracked, and they have just spent every single feed for the last 4 weeks just absolutely hating breastfeeding. And I'm like, well, where have you been? What have you been doing? And they're like, oh, well, the nurses at hospital told me that the baby had a good latch, so it looked okay, but it's kind of sore still, and everyone told me that it's supposed to be sore, and my nipples are supposed to be breastfeeding. Like, absolutely not. You know, so I think so many people tell you stories about breastfeeding and all their horror stories, but you know, there's very few reasons why a baby can't breastfeed. And if they can't breastfeed, yeah, it's very unusual that a baby can't breastfeed. There's always a solution to a breastfeeding problem most of the time. So it's really just about getting help, and getting help early, like within the first few days of the baby's life. So either a hospital visit at home, or a hospital visit, or a home visit, or obviously go to a clinic. But then on the other hand, you know, there are some moms who really don't enjoy breastfeeding, and that is absolutely okay. You know, there's this huge, yeah, guilt of yeah, kind of having to feed, and there's this expectation to feed. But a lot of moms, and the thing is also because a lot of moms, we're quite used to having control in our lives, and like we know that if we do this, this is going to happen, and this is my work situation, this is going to happen, and they've got control. Whereas breastfeeding, you've got no control. You know, you feed your baby, you don't really know how much they're getting. You kind of presume that they're getting enough. So it's this huge lesson in letting go and kind of not having control over a situation, which a lot of moms don't like. Um, and for them, like breastfeeding is just too much. They're like, I can't have this unknown. So I'm either going to pump and bottle feed, or I'm going to give formula, and that's okay. You know, we know that breastfeeding, ideally everyone should breastfeed for their babies up to 2 years, but for some moms that's not possible. I mean, for most moms it's not possible going back to work. And my ultimate is like, the mom has to be happy. You think you're feeding your baby 8 to 9, 10 times, sometimes 12 times in 24 hours. You think how much time you spend sitting feeding. And if you are not enjoying that, it's just not worth it. There are other ways to feed our babies and other ways to comfort our babies. But if the mom is really not loving it and really not enjoying it, I always encourage the moms to kind of go with what they feel they're more comfortable. And sometimes when I say that to moms, it's almost like they're waiting for me to give them permission to stop breastfeeding. And when I say to them, like, it's okay, you don't have to breastfeed, and this huge weight just lifts off their shoulders, and they're
Wow.
like, oh, thank you. It's like this permission of like, oh, I don't have to do this, or admitting that actually they're almost ashamed to admit that they don't like breastfeeding or they don't enjoy breastfeeding. And many moms are like that, but they're just too scared to say it or admit it because they think that they're going to be judged by society or their friends or whatever. And yeah, there's plenty of moms who it doesn't work out, and their babies grow beautifully and they're healthy. But again, it's this kind of society, this pressure of you have to feed your baby. You've got to breastfeed your baby. If you don't, why didn't you? And I mean, and for me, it was such a difficult journey. I mean, when my third baby would not breastfeed, I'm like, what the hell here? Like, I'm a lactation consultant. I have fed twin babies. Like, how can I have not this? How can I have a baby who doesn't want to breastfeed? Like, you're kidding me. And he just did not want to breastfeed. And we had a seriously tough journey of 6 months of feeding on and off. And it was really hard work. And I was absolutely devastated when it had finished. But that's the journey that I was on, and I learned from it, and I was humbled by it. And that's the kind of journey my son made us go on, and that's where it was. So it's hugely emotional, but getting support from lactation consultants and people who kind of will support you in your journey, because it can be it's an exhausting journey, an overwhelming journey, and it can be a beautiful journey, but it can be very overwhelming as well.
I think that the idea of support is something that none of us have really leaned into enough. And something that we find, and this we'll finish after this question, because I'd love to kind of close it off with this idea of support and community. And I know that your clinic is very active in creating that for mums, and the Parent Hub, we're obviously also trying to do that. And where do you think, in a world that is very fixated on social media and the online world, I feel like it's creating this barrier for personal, in-person community and support.
Connection.
Exactly. And so many of the mums, and then we're feeling this like overwhelm and a little bit frantic for time and pressure. And so often I see, as soon as mums actually get into community with other mums, where they can, if they're struggling with breastfeeding or the guilt, as soon as they get in person with somebody and talk about it, there is almost, like you said, even when you give permission, there's this weight that's lifted off of them. Like, I'm not alone. There are other people dealing with this. Maybe their story is a bit different, but they've felt it. And I'd love for you to just close this off with the idea of community and how important you think it is for mums in this early stage, particularly, to surround themselves with support of experts and also supports with people going through it at the same time as them.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, looking back to my experience, I mean, I started antenatal classes, kind of towards the end of my pregnancy, and some of the moms in those classes, I mean, that was nearly 12 years ago. Some of them are my best friends, and we've stayed connected, and they are really some of the most special people in our lives now. And I remember going to those. We used to have like weekly catch-ups with my antenatal group, and I just felt like this huge enlightenment, like this weight off my shoulders every week that we met, and it was just so incredible to have moms to kind of compare stories with, and just to have that support. And I love, obviously I do a lot of antenatal classes, and I'm still on the WhatsApp groups, and just seeing how the moms connect and chatting, and then they meet, they're kind of making plans to meet, and then all the pictures of them together. And because I mean, being at home with a baby is incredibly lonely. I mean, it's just kind of monotonous day in and day out within the first kind of few months, really. And it can be a hell of a lonely place, and being by yourself, and especially for moms who are so used to being out in the office or going out kind of, this and that, and kind of being busy. It's a very hard transition for them to be at home with their baby, and you start questioning yourself, am I doing the right thing? And so, kind of getting out, and I do find WhatsApp groups are helpful, but not nearly as helpful as actually having that kind of face-to-face kind of that direct connection. with people. But again, kind of going back to my antenatal classes, always at the beginning of the course, we run a 6-week course, and I'm very privileged to work with a really wonderful group of practitioners, healthcare practitioners, so a GP, physios, dietitians, psychologists, and we are all part of this pediatric practice. And I always encourage the moms and dads in my antenatal classes to really lean into the community of practitioners, because we're all on the same page. We're all we refer to each other, we share patients, and just having kind of this group of practitioners who that we kind of all know you, and you become, and some of my patients, I mean, they've become really special people in my life, like we get to know each other really, really well because of all the support that we've kind of provided over the few years. So connecting with somebody on a regular basis, or from a professional point of view, checking in clinic visits, pediatricians, and going to see those people regularly so that they can get to know you and get to know your baby. It's so incredible to kind of see the connections that happen over the few weeks and a few months. And so it can't be done alone. I mean, you think back many years ago, like people were raising kids in villages, and your child would run out and your auntie would pick them up, or your neighbor would pick them up, and they'd be playing with the kids down the road. And, there's always friends and family around, whereas now, like, we're just so isolated. So many families live away from each other. They don't have families around. They don't have grandparents around. Their friends are in different cities. Some people are moving countries or moving cities, and it can be very, very isolating. So it's really, really worth finding your community, finding a group of people who you connect with. And if you don't find that person immediately or that group immediately, you kind of look around until you find those people, because there always will be people there to kind of share that experience with you and to support you.
Love it. Tasha, thank you so much for joining us today. I feel like that was such
Thank
a
you.
valuable conversation. Really excited for the mums. And also just a huge thank you to you and your team for creating what you are creating. Just hearing you speak, I think that there is this huge narrative. And I hear from mums before they become mums, they almost expect and have almost normalized the idea that new motherhood will be lonely and isolating. And I love how clinics like yours are offering not only support professionally, but you are moving away from that narrative that it needs to be lonely, that you are setting up these communities that we need to have a tribe. We need to have support.
Yeah,
Mums
so important.
so thank you for doing that and all the hard work
Absolutely.
that you're putting in. So thank you, and have a
Pleasure.
wonderful week
Pleasure.
forward. And
Wonderful. Thank you
we
so
will
much,
chat.
Christy. It's been lovely chatting to you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.